All right, it's 8 a.m. I will call the meeting to order. Jewel.
Thank you. Good morning, board, staff, and members of the public. After my statement, the chairman will open this meeting and explain the rules for this electronic meeting. Please keep your microphone on mute when you are not speaking. The technical support team may proactively mute participants if the microphone is picking up background noise. Board members should check to make sure the microphone is not muted before speaking. You may text me at 540-336-3948 at any time during the meeting if you need technical support, and an IT tech will call your cell phone to assist. I now turn the meeting over to Committee Chairman Allen.
Thank you, Jewel. Due to the local state of emergency for the COVID-19 pandemic, the Loudon Water Board is meeting today by electronic means pursuant to VA Code 2.2-3708.2A3. Public notice and meeting access information was provided on the Loudon Water website. The recording of the meeting will be available at this link, which is loudonwater.org, virtual meeting recordings. Board members wishing to speak are reminded to press unmute and identify themselves by name so that staff can accurately capture comments. All items will be recommended to the November 10th, 2021 board meeting. The board secretary will now take a roll call attendance of the committee members.
Thank you, sir. And just for clarification, I believe the budget would be going to the December meeting. Is that correct, Brian?
Yes, that is correct, Jewel. Yep.
All right, thank you. Sorry, I should have included that in the blanket statement. And a roll call, Mr. Allen?
Here.
Mr. Byers?
Here.
Mr. Campbell?
Here.
Mr. Kelly? Mr. Kelly? All right, and I'd like to acknowledge that Chairman Koblis is also on the call. Thank you.
Thank you, Jewel. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting agenda.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Roll call, Jewel.
Thank you, Mr. Byers,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly, and Mr. Allen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, action items. The first item is the approval of authorizing a resolution for a standby bond purchase agreement by Mr. Carnes.
Good morning.
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 So the first item is the extension of our standby bond purchase agreement. We issued variable rate debt in 2005 for $25 million. We currently have $11.8 million outstanding with a principal payment of $1.1 million due January 1st. One of the reasons to issue variable rate debt is that it creates a natural hedge against interest rates. For the past 3 years, we've been paying between 0.02% and 1.78%. That 1.78% was about 3 years ago. We've been paying on the lower end for about the past year and a half, closer to 0.05 to 0.02. The current 30-year AAA municipal bond rate is 1.7%. Our current agreement with Bank of America, we pay a rate of 46 basis points per year, and that agreement is due to expire January 2nd. So this year we'll be paying Bank of America about $52,000. We, with Davenport, our financial advisors, asked Bank of America for extension pricing, and they responded, and they provided 37 basis points for the next 3 years. We did ask Davenport to reach out to some other providers, and the feedback we got was, one, there really wouldn't be much interest since there's only about $11 million left on the bonds. If somebody did compete for the bids or for the bonds, they would be at a higher rate than what Bank of America would provide, and we would have to pay all the expenses to reissue, which, the official statements, the re-ratings, and the legal fees and all of that. Our agreement with Bank of America does allow us to terminate if the short-term ratings of the bank are downgraded, or if the bonds are redeemed, refunded, or the rate of interest is converted to a fixed rate. So we think, so we'll pay about $37 or $37,000 next year to Bank of America if this is approved. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. If not, this is the recommended motion.
I have a few questions.
Mhm.
I know we already have this agreement in place, but just for my own edification. So we're gonna be paying 37,000 in theory for 3 consecutive years, correct?
Probably a little bit more because of the basis point difference, but yeah, about 50,000 or so. Yeah.
Okay. And then why do we need this agreement? If someone tenders, can't we just pay them directly, or are we permitted from acting as a custodian? Is that the issue?
Yeah, one of the requirements is that we have this liquidity facility, and so we had to get a standby bond purchase agreement in order if someone puts, because these have a put feature, and they say we have to pay off the principal. If for some reason we couldn't, we have this. The Bank of America would essentially buy it for us. Yeah.
I got you. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? All right. Anyone want to make the motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it, and 37 basis points is amazing.
Okay, roll call, Jewel.
Thank you. Mr. Byers,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly, Mr. Allen,
Yes.
and I'd like to also acknowledge that Mr. Bonfils is on the call. Mr. Bonfils, I'm sorry. I should have said that before. And Mr. Allen, would you like this on consent or action?
Consent, please.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, next item, Mr. Carnes is up again. Approval of the 2022 operating budget.
Right. So this is the draft or the proposed 2022 operating budget. So we'll talk a little bit about the process, some of the key issues in the budget, and then talk a little bit about the revenues and expenses in more detail. So today we're going to review the operating budget. At your November 17th joint meeting with the CIP committee, you'll be presented the proposed 10-year capital improvement plan, as well as the proposed 2022 capital spending plan. And then at your December 9th board meeting, you'll be asked to approve the combined 2022 operating budget and capital spending plan. So some of the key issues, rates is the big issue that we're still working on. You'll be asked to approve the 3% user rate and 3% availability charge at your December 9th board meeting as well. This budget does include those proposed rate increases. Growth in 2022 is projected at 2,534, which is an increase from our 2021 projection of 2,200, and we are still expecting that to come in above 2,700 this year. Largely, data centers, are still playing a big factor in our growth there. So total revenues for 2022 are projected to be 156.3 million, which is an $8 million increase from the 2021 adopted budget. Your operating revenues are 112.1 million, and so this includes the user rate increase, the customer growth increase, as well as the increases that are proposed for things like inspection fees, record drawing fees, connection fees, CCTV fees as well. And so that's a $2.5 million increase from the 2021 adopted budget, and about a $4 million increase from our projected actuals for 2021. Non-operating revenue is projected to be 44.3 million, and that's made up of your availability charges and investment income, and that's a $5.5 million increase from 2021. That's largely driven by the availability charges, which are projected to be 41,475,000. So the 3% increase plays a factor in that, as well as the increase from 2,200 to 2,534 ERCs. Investment income is projected to be less than 2021, and that's due to the not great interest rates that we're still experiencing, as well as the fact that we used $68 million in cash to defease the Series 2013 bonds earlier this summer. Are there any questions about the revenue before I move on to expenses? Expenses are total to be 154.9 million. That's a $6.8 million increase from the 2021 adopted budget. And that's largely driven by increased costs for personnel and system maintenance costs. So your operating expenses, if we take out depreciation, you're looking at $80.7 million for the 2022 budget. And so that's made up of personnel, contractual services, material supplies, and other services and charges. And that's a $5.2 million increase from our 2021 budget. So I'm going to take a minute to talk through kind of the personnel impact on that. So 3.4 million of that 5.2 million is the one-time book entry that we're required to make as a result of the new post-65 health insurance plan that you approved earlier this year. So that is a non-cash book entry, but we do have to make it in 2022. So that's 3.4 million. Along with that, as part of the new post-65 plan, the defined contribution portion will be a new $500,000 expense. And we also budgeted a new $100,000 for the defined benefit costs of the plan. So in total, it's about $4 million increase for the personnel budget this year due to the post-65 plan. But again, that 3.4 million is a one-time non-cash expense. So some of the other, yes, Mr. Koplis.
So what is the actual increase of personnel if you take out those three items? Is it about $1 million or?
No, it's about 2.1 million. 2.1 million without the post-65.
And what percent is that?
I'm sorry, I don't have, that's.
You can't do that in your head?
I'm not good at math in my head, no. No, I'm not. Let me see.
Yeah, my question is did we hire more people? Are we giving bigger raises?
Yeah.
You know, what's the deal?
So we're not giving bigger raises. There's a couple things. Our just standard health insurance is, continuing to increase. So we budgeted about 800,000 more for just standard health insurance.
Wow.
The FICA expense is going to go up this year. The increased that limit from about 142,000 to 147,000. Which is about a $200,000 increase. And then we do have a pool of funds for new hires, which is about $900,000, but that includes salaries and expenses. And we can be flexible with that. We can push off hire dates to reduce that. We can see if we can maybe push off hires for another year. So that there's a little flexibility with that expense there. So that's,
now when you show your budget to the public, will you itemize why this, it was just such an incredible increase of 17%. Obviously it caught my eye.
Yes.
Are we going to break this down and show why, not just have a line item of 17% on there?
Yeah, so in what we share to the public is this and the budget document. And so we tried in the document to kind of footnote pretty much everywhere we could that there is this $3.4 million one-time expense that's really causing that increase.
Okay. And then my second question, not to dominate here, that was the increase in, I don't see it. Oh, I guess it's in the actual budget.
Yeah, the repair and maintenance.
Yeah,
supplies.
yeah. How come that went up so high?
Yeah, so that was like a 12% increase, I believe. And so those line items there are really the expenses that I think you're all experiencing increases in as well. It's gas, it's pieces of equipment, it's inventory items where these costs are going up. And so that's why our costs went up as well. We're starting to experiencing increases in these things when we purchase them. And so it's not really that we're purchasing more or anything like that. It's just that this is a reaction to the price increases that we're seeing from our vendors.
Wow, that's kind of scary, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
All right, that's all I had. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
Hey, Brian, it's Bill. So you said when Mark asked about what you're going to show with the public, the next document, the one with the colored graphs on it under personnel, is that the document that the public would see?
So yes, that's the public, or sorry, that's the document that's on the our public board docs website. So yes, if someone wants to see our personnel or all of our budget, that's the document that they
All
can.
right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so depreciation is 64.2 million, and that's a $2.7 million increase. And that's just the result of more projects, being completed in last year, and so we can start depreciating them going forward. Non-operating expenses are projected to be 10 million. So this is your principal and interest expense, and this is a decrease of 1.1 million from last year. And so now we're starting to see the impact of the refunding of the 2012 bonds and the defeasance of the Series 2013 bonds that you approved earlier this year. So we're saving some money now. So just a little bit more detail here. So this is the $6.8 million increase. And so this is the personnel, which we talked about. Contractual services, we are projecting about $1 million decrease. And that's really on our wholesale water and wholesale wastewater costs. We looked at what we've been doing the past 3 years in our rate study, and our projections have been more than what we've actually been paying, and so we reduced those this year to account for that. Materials and supplies, that was the gas and the materials that we discussed. Other services and charges is a decrease, and that's led by less electricity costs and less training and travel for next year. Depreciation and amortization we discussed, and principal and interest we discussed as well. I'm happy to answer any more questions that you may have about the budget.
Yeah, Brian, real quick, that last slide, we had an increase in personnel in 6.1, and then a few slides earlier, I thought we had like a 5.2.
Yeah. So it was, sure, it was a little confusing because the operating budget in total, which is the personnel, contractual services, materials and supplies, and other services, so that only went up 5 point, I think it was 3 or 4 is what I had said. And so the 3.4 million made up that, but when you look at in total, it went up, the personnel itself went up 6.1, but then there was this $1 million decrease in contractual services and other services and charges. So it was, I think it's just looking at the operating expenses in total, we actually went up less than that 6.1 million.
Okay, so the 6.1 million in personnel is I'm still.
Sure. So the 6.1 million, if you look at it, is about 4 million in that post 65 OPEB expense, which is the 3.4 million entry, the defined contribution and the defined benefit makes up 4 million. Another 800,000 is just our standard health insurance increase. About another 900,000 is new hires, including salaries and benefits. Another 200,000 is FICA, and then I forget what the total is, but just salary increase for the current folks that are employed as well. And then there's a couple thousand here or there in some of our other benefits as well, but I think that makes up most of it.
Yep. No, that totals up. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a question, and correct me if I'm wrong. It seems like historically we always seem to over budget for personnel expenses and operating expenses in general. I see that we budgeted 34.5 million for this year. I'm going to be 32.7. Excuse me. I mean, I know I don't want to paint you into a corner, but do you think that's going to continue? That this is an aggressive budget number, or you feel confident that this is a real number?
I think with the personnel, I think we probably are aggressive with when we think we'll hire people.
That's the
So
900,000.
yeah, so we may think we'll get somebody in, April, and maybe it takes till August or later to get that hire. And I think that's that flexibility that we were talking about that we have with that, where if we're getting close to our dollar amount that we have budgeted, we can hopefully maybe delay some of those hires. And I think that's what you see is the pool is not it's the pool, and we address the needs when they come, and maybe we can't get the right person when we think we can, and so we'll wait later to hire that person, and so that reduces that number.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, if there's no more questions, can someone make the recommended motion?
You have that. Here we go.
I'll make a motion. I guess we're just recommending this to the full board. So I'll make a motion to that effect.
I'll second it.
Roll call, Jewel?
Thank you, Mr. Byers,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly, Mr. Allen,
Yes.
and I assume this will be action.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
On to informational items, the quarterly investment review. Guess who's doing that? Brian.
Sorry, I know you listen to me all the time. Sorry.
We thanked you prematurely.
That's
We
right.
need to-
I still
we
got
need to-
2 more.
We need to get you an assistant who can do some of this stuff.
So this is for the quarter ending September 30th. Our total portfolio was a little under 255 million. So you can see the breakdown here between agencies and munis and commercial paper and corporate bonds. So this is a substantial decrease from the last quarter because of that defeasance that we did. So yeah, as you can see, there's our total portfolio that decreased from 326 to 255. Rates are still not great. So we did have about 8.9 million mature last quarter, and we invested 15 million. And this is the first time in a little while where we actually invested at a higher rate than the bonds that rolled off. So that was pretty exciting. Unfortunately, 0.7 was pretty exciting. Yeah. So we'll continue to yes, Mr. Koblis.
Yeah, Brian. I guess I'll just the simple question is probably better for me to just bring out. How are we going to pay for JLMA? We have an extreme amount of money that we really didn't plan for, and are we going to issue more bonds, or how's that going to work to pay for that? Because it's going to come up next year, or a substantial amount in the next couple of years for sure.
Sure. So I forget what the total was in the last CIP, and so that was included in the 5-year plan that we did last spring, which showed that we would need another borrowing in 2024 or 2025, I believe. But so what we'll do after the budget's approved, the CIP and the operating budget is in the spring. We'll do another update to the 5-year plan, and so I think that'll really show how we're going to pay for that, whether if we need to issue new bonds for that or not. So I think we usually do that in the February, March, April timeframe. So we'll see then whether we'll need to issue money any sooner than 2024 or 2025. But we always seem to come in with more ERCs, and so that kind of continues to push off our need to borrow. So.
And that was 20 million, correct?
That was 20 million, correct. Yep.
If I could just add to that, the development community will bear a lot of the burden of infrastructure in the JLMA, and then the capital infrastructure that Loudon Water incorporates into their availability fee is also in there. So we're treating the JLMA just like we do the central system. And so the bulk of that will be either availability charges or on the developer to make those connections.
Yeah, I was just worried because it's kind of something that we certainly didn't expect, a year ago or 2 years ago, and all of a sudden, we got a lot of money we got to spend. And okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Good question, though. All right, so is that it for the quarterly investment review?
Yes,
Brian?
that is
Okay.
that is it for the quarterly investment review.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, just real quick, Brian, are you hearing any chatter from our consultants or anybody about just interest rates going up over next year or the following year? I mean, obviously that's kind of out there, but I'm just curious if you have any more specific information or thoughts on that.
I mean, what the folks that I've talked to think it's going to go up, but I'm not, I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think as we continue to invest, it does seem like the offers that we're getting now are higher than we were receiving, especially if you go out 5 years, which is our max that we can.
Yeah,
go
the
out.
long end of the curve is already up 40, 50 basis points from where it was 90 days ago. The short end of the curve isn't, but as Brian said, past 5 years, it's already up.
Does that affect any of our thought process in terms of investing at certain timeframes? Is it wise to try to do shorter, with some of this stuff, 5 point or 0.58%, but if we think that these rates are going to go up next year and 2 years, 3 years, and not get tied into longer term rates that ultimately end up being a lot lower than perhaps they will be?
Yeah, so that is one of the things we look at is kind of our ladder in diversification, and when money's rolling off and making sure that we kind of get money available to pay for these capital expenses, on a regular basis. So there definitely is that balance of trying to get that higher interest rate and just making sure that we have money available to us that's kind of not tied up. So we kind of look at it all those ways. Yep.
All right. The next item on the information portion of the agenda is the monthly financial summary. Brian?
Me again.
You again.
Right. So total operating revenues are at 81 million, which is a little bit above our projected actual through the end of September. Non-operating revenues are at 36.3 million, which is above the projection, and so we are about 9 million above our forecast through the end of September. Operating expenses are at 107 million, which is about 2 million under our forecast. Again, the depreciation is above forecast, and that's a result of those bond premiums that we had to take as a one-time hit to our amortization due to the 2012 refunding and 2013 defeasance. ERCs through September, we were at 2,003 ERCs. You can see data centers are at 728. Last year, at the end of September, we had 1,799 ERCs, and we still are projecting to come in a little over 2,700 ERCs for the year. Let's see, capital spending. The revised capital spending plan is 82.5 million. Through September, that was projected to be 53.7, and we came in at 52.9. So 98% of where we projected to be. Yes, Mr. Koblis.
Yeah, just real quick question. I always think that the data centers are going to slow down at some point, but it seems like they're not. Is there anybody projecting? We always kind of do our ERCs and then surprise, we have a bunch more. Is anybody projecting, whether it's at the county level or whatever, of how long this is going to continue to grow?
I'm not sure if Robin's on the phone, if she has any more input. I mean, internally, Micah does a great job of tracking our data center projections and working with those folks. But you're right, we take our numbers from the county, and so I'm not sure if the county has any idea what that looks like. I'm not sure.
And just to follow up to Mark's question, so are we confident that we're going to get 700 ERCs in the next 3 months?
Well, that's based on when the data centers are thinking they're going to connect, but there's no guarantee that they'll pay within the next 3 months. But I don't think it's not if they don't pay in the next 3 months, they're not going to pay. It's that they might just slip to next year, depending on how their progress is moving with their development. So we're going to get those ERCs. It's just a matter of whether they'll pay before the December 31st date or not.
And then availability goes up, right? So is that going to motivate them to pay?
It usually does. It usually does. We usually see quite a significant increase in ERCs in December. As you can see, last year we had over 1,200 pay before that kind of rate increase went up, and the same thing with the year before, about 800. So they do, if they can, try to get in before they see that 3% increase impact them.
And then one more follow up. So last year we substantially reduced our ERC estimate, which was 2,200.
Yep.
So why did we go down so much last year? And then, to dovetail off of that, now we're being a little bit more aggressive with the 2,500. Why are we going back up again? Just I'm trying to get a handle on the philosophical thing.
So before 2021, we took all of our numbers right from the county projections. And then for 2021, we felt that we needed to look at what we were actually experiencing based on growth from residential and commercial customers because we did have a slowdown. You can see there's some low months here due to COVID, the pandemic. And so we took a hard look at what we were expecting for next year and felt like we needed to reduce that number based on what we were seeing. And so this year, we went back to using the county numbers because, as you noted, it's coming in higher. That slowdown didn't necessarily happen as we thought it might. So we went back to using the county projections.
That's fair.
And Brian, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe that the county's projections include data centers.
Correct. So the numbers we use come from the county, and they do not include data centers.
Right. And so we're not, when you see low projections from Loud and Water, it's because the county's not necessarily taking into account those data centers, which is good because they're not going to maybe be around forever. But the other thing that we do then is an internal look at what we feel very confident is coming in from data centers. And then you get this kind of revised projection. But we always like to point back to the county's number so we have something to kind of fall back on.
Blame.
Yes.
Exactly.
Wow, that is a revelation. I didn't realize the county didn't put data centers in their numbers. That seems a little short-sighted, but I guess it covers them.
They probably have it in their tax receipt numbers, though.
I'll bet.
Mm-hmm.
I just got a text from Mr. Kelly. He apologized for not making the meeting. But he said he looked at the budget and he approves it. I know we can't formalize that, but I just wanted to let other committee members know. He does have one question about the capitalizing operating leases. I don't know if you can touch on that for GASB. The timing.
The timing.
Yeah.
We're working on that right now. We've been going through capturing all the data of what we have in the leases and working with all of the departments to make sure we have all that captured. And so that's an ongoing project that we're doing.
Great. Thank you. All right, does anyone else have any questions surrounding the monthly financials? All right, seeing as there's no more questions, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second that. And Brian, thanks again for all the great work on this.
Yeah, great job,
Thank
Brian.
you. Thank you all very much.
Jewel, roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Byers,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly, Mr. Allen.
Yes.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned at 8:35, and the next meeting is November 17th for the joint meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
See you guys.